In the top stories, National Assembly to meet on Thursday. Brazil hits record high daily COVID deaths and Chile police accused of minor abuse. Hello and welcome to the ZIZ Midday Newscast. Today is Wednesday, the 3rd of March 2021. I'm Jason Davis. Nationally, members of Parliament will gather at government headquarters on Thursday for the next sitting of National Assembly at 10 a.m. Prime Minister Dr. The Honorable Timothy Harris will introduce and have read a first time the Gaming Control Bill 2021, Non-Government Organizations Amendment Bill 2021, Miscellaneous Financial Services Amendment Bill 2021, and the Virtual Assets Amendment Bill 2021. Additionally, the Prime Minister will move the second reading of an amendment to the Income Tax Bill, which had its first reading on the 17th of November 2020. Minister of Health, the Honorable Akila Byron Nisbet, will seek leave to introduce and have read a first and second time the COVID-19 Prevention and Control Amendment Bill. At the sitting, Minister of Foreign Affairs and Aviation, the Honorable Mark Brantley, will seek to introduce and have read an amendment to the Civil Aviation Bill. This will be the first reading for that amendment. Attorney General and Minister of Justice and Legal Affairs, the Honorable Vincent Byron, will move the second reading of an amendment to the Magistrates Court of Procedure Bill, the Criminal Procedures Bill, and the Jury Bill. The National Assembly will be carried live on ZIZ Radio 96.1 FM and other participating radio stations, and it can also be viewed live on TV, Channel 5 in St. Kitts and Channel 98 in Nevis. It will also be streamed live at www.zizonline.com. Copies of the bills can be found on the website www.sknis.gov.kn of the St. Kitts and Nevis Information Service under the section Bills. In other news, small business owners are sharing their success stories and encouraging other persons who may be thinking about going into business or who are already in business to consult with the Small Business Development Center, or SBDC. To commemorate Global Entrepreneurship Week on Small Business Tuesday, the SBDC showcased small businesses and highlighted how they were able to stay afloat during the pandemic. Ray Farrell is one of the entrepreneurs in the spotlight.
When I started, I wrote a letter for duty free concession, and they came through. I put down for my popcorn machine and other stuff I use, all the hot dog machine. And I wrote a letter and they approved it, and yeah, I got through. So it is very good. SBT, yeah, you have to go there. You cannot decide your own pocket. They are there to help you, so you take the help.
Introducing the event, Minister of Industry and Commerce, the Honorable Wendy Phipps, encouraged persons to view entrepreneurship as another avenue to generate revenue, as opposed to the traditional means.
Also, we are hoping from Small Business Tuesday 2021 that we will present to young people in St. Kitts and Nevis opportunities and ideas for business development, rather than the traditional route after leaving school of just seeking a job with someone else. By becoming an entrepreneur, which has its own contingent risks, nevertheless, we are also letting our young people know that there are opportunities for growth, for wealth development, and for business development, and ultimately job creation in St. Kitts and Nevis.
The event, which was streamed live, also featured persons within the catering, construction, event planning, and retail sectors, with staff members answering questions which were posed by viewers. Ahead of the annual observance of International Women's Day on March 8, this week's panel on Working for You will feature women who are involved in a wide cross-section of society. Panelists Sharon Warner, Dwinette Eversley, and Professor June Guichard-Pine will discuss the National Gender Equality Policy and Action Plan on Wednesday. This year's theme for International Women's Day is #ChooseToChallenge, on the premise that a challenged world is an alert world where each person is responsible for his or her thoughts and actions. Working for You is carried live every Wednesday on ZIZ and other participating radio stations. And the program is also streamed live on the SKNIS Facebook and YouTube pages. We now move to news on the regional scene. Brazil on Tuesday posted its highest number of deaths from COVID-19 in a single day as political infighting exacerbated the country's health crisis and the pace of its vaccination rollout faltered. Some 1,641 people died from COVID-19 on Tuesday, according to Health Ministry data, surpassing the previous single-day high of 1,595 deaths recorded in late July of 2020. Al Jazeera's Monica Yanikev reports.
A battle of wills in the midst of tragedy, one that has killed more than 250,000 Brazilians in a year, the second highest death toll in the world. Local authorities shut down Brazil's capital city, Brasilia, to save the health system from total collapse. More than 90% of intensive care beds are occupied, and COVID-19 infections are on the rise. The emergency lockdown was met with anger by some who took to the streets shouting, "We want to work." And President Jair Bolsonaro took their side. He threatened to punish governors and mayors who are pushing for lockdowns and curfews by cutting off federal assistance.
O auxílio emergencial vem por mais alguns meses.
From now on, the governor who closes his state, who destroys jobs, will be the one who pays for the emergency aid.
But he offered no solution to the health crisis, the worst since the beginning of the pandemic. 20 out of Brazil's 27 state capitals have run out of beds in their intensive care units. And an estimated 70 Brazilians are dying every hour from COVID-19. Meanwhile, vaccines are slow in coming, and only 3% of the population has been inoculated so far.
If we do not stop the outbreak, we'll face a total collapse of the health system. We can increase the number of intensive care beds all we want, but if the number of infections continues to grow, there'll never be enough. The only solution is a 14-day nationwide lockdown, like other countries have imposed with success. But here we face a lack of leadership and total denial.
Several Brazilian states and the capital Brasilia have imposed restrictions to fight this second wave of the pandemic. But here in Rio de Janeiro, life continues pretty much as usual. People are making the most of their summer, staying on the beach, as you can see, until nightfall.
But fears of a second wave and the total lack of unity in fighting the pandemic are affecting business. Carlo Fiori says he rarely leaves the house, but has decided to enjoy one last night out. He's sure things will get much worse before they get better. Monica Yanikev, Al Jazeera, Rio de Janeiro.
A COVID-19 outbreak at the Borderline Correctional Facility has sent correction officers into overdrive to separate the infected prisoners from the general population. 105 of the 155 confirmed COVID-19 cases on Monday are prisoners. The infected inmates will now have to contend with time in isolation as they recover from COVID-19. Here's more.
105 positive COVID-19 cases have been recorded at the Bodily Correctional Facility. There was upheaval at the prison weeks ago when inmates live-streamed their protest over court delays and COVID-19 cases. Ironically, the inmates were seen on camera skirting social distancing protocols in their bid to bring across their grievances. The aftermath of the prison riot is now rearing its ugly head.
Coming out of our inmate riot, started doing all this testing is part of the results of that. So what we've done is created an isolation unit, and we're moving some of those inmates, all of the positive ones, into an isolation unit. And as you know, we will continue to do as much sanitizing and wearing a mask as possible as we can.
Director of Corrections Hilary Herman says social distancing remains a challenge in the overcrowded prison system. The inmates who were up in arms over a COVID-19 scare are now coming to terms with the outcome of their actions.
The inmates are, like anything else, there's some sense of anxiety, but they're aware of it. They did the testing, and the results are now being realized. So some of them know and some of them don't know. As a matter of fact, the way we operate is we have 9 individual units, 9 small prisons within our overall prison, and the 2 units that we had the events in, the riot event that the inmates had, those are the units that those positives came out of.
Herman says the 105 positive inmates are being monitored. However, most of them do not appear to have symptoms. The director says should their condition worsen, they will have to be moved to the respiratory hospital. Herman says the department is also concerned about staff members who are contracting the virus.
As long as you have it within the compound, our staff will be subjected to it. So we have to be extra cautious, and our staff is fully aware of it. Keep in mind we have some dedicated staff that continue to come into work even in light of the situation.
The Ministry of Health, in a press release dated March 2nd, outlined a list of recommendations to control the situation at the Bodily facility, including the vaccination of inmates and custodial staff and limiting the number of areas where inmates gather. Solange Alfred, HTS News Force.
Internationally, a prosecutor is investigating cases of alleged police abuse against minors in a Mapuche-dominated region of south-central Chile on the day of a massive raid. The police have denied the accusations and insisted that Chilean police do not mistreat minors. Al Jazeera's Lucia Newman reports.
These images show some of more than 800 police intelligence officers carrying out an unprecedented raid in south-central Chile, in an area dominated by indigenous Mapuches. On this farm, police searching for marijuana were attacked by unidentified gunmen. One of the officers was killed. Although his death dominated national news, it wasn't the only violence that took place that day. These photos show police operatives using what human rights experts call illegitimate use of force and abuse against minors. Here, the target was the 7-year-old daughter of Mapuche activist Camilo Catrillanca. He was killed 2 years ago by Special Forces police. Her mother and grandmother were also thrown face down to the ground and detained.
This is not an exceptional or isolated case. It's part of institutional violence practiced against the Mapuche people, in which children are also victims.
Police Intelligence Director Hector Espinosa denies that the child was detained and insists that Chilean police don't mistreat minors. But this recording of a Mapuche teenager reportedly being grabbed by police suggests otherwise. You can hear the girl being told she'll be killed if she doesn't shut up.
A prosecutor is now investigating charges of alleged police abuse against minors on the day of the massive raid. But with the government now under strong pressure to declare a state of siege in the restive region, a lot of people are afraid that things will get worse. In fact, the army has already been given the go-ahead to carry out patrols in the area alongside Special Forces police.
The situation today is of uncertainty and fear for the safety of the children.
Onésima Lienqueo says the violation of Mapuche children's human rights is an intergenerational problem.
The children who yesterday experienced violence from the state are the parents of the children experiencing it today. So the job of reparation and reconciliation is very complex.
The sharp increase in attacks by unidentified armed groups who claim to fight for Mapuche land rights has taken the conflict in southern Chile to a new level. And with no solution in sight, a new generation of Mapuche children is growing up with violence, fear, and anger. Lucia Newman, Al Jazeera, Santiago.
And now for the weather. Present weather shows clear skies with a moderate breeze of 13 miles per hour from the east. The temperature for today is 29 degrees Celsius or 83 degrees Fahrenheit. Seas are moderate with waves of 5 to 6 feet. The weather today and tonight will be partly cloudy with a 20% or slight chance of showers. Sunset today will be at 6:18 p.m. Sunrise tomorrow at 6:27 a.m. And that brings us to the end of the ZIZ Midday Newscast. Join us this evening for these stories and more in detail. Thank you for tuning in. I'm Jason Davis.